Hey everybody, it's Lynn Pratt. Thanks for joining me. Today we are going to paint some leaves and we're going to work on mixing paint to different values. So we're going to do layers of leaves. Now I've supplied you with all the different images of the different layers that we're going to add on, and you can feel free to draw those out on your paper like we normally do if you need to. However, you will see your pencil outline on them. So I'm just going to add them freeform. This one is not nearly as important as exactly where each leaf is, as long as you get your layers right. So to start, I have my paint mixed up on my palette. So I have a pile of shadow green and hooker's green. I made this one pile in about a half and half consistency, like cream, half and half cream, consistency mixed paint. I mixed it all right there. Then I moved some to a separate puddle and added a little bit more water. So this one's about 60% as dark as this one. Then I have a super light pile that's basically a water consistency. And this one's my super light pile. But again, I didn't mix them separately. I mixed one pile and then pulled to make my other two so that they're all the same color. So to start out, to paint my actual leaves for an 11 by 14 paper, I am using a size 8 Holbein gold round. Now, to do my long line, I can easily use the tip of this brush as well, or I can use a liner or a script pen. Or brush, sorry, not pen. But here are a few examples. There's all different brands. I have found that they all work just about as good as each other. So you just want to get a liner or a script pen, something like that, that draws that nice long line to get it nice and smooth. So I'm going to start with my most watered down, and I'm just going to freehand in that line. So I've just got my brush loaded up, and it's not perfectly straight. And when you're using these liner brush, you want to pull straight with them. If you go to the side, you don't get as thin of a line. Okay, so I've got my stem to start. And then I'm just going to take my brush, I'm going to look at my photo for reference, and I'm just going to put my leaves in. Okay, so again, I'm not being super particular about this. I'm using it as a guide. I know that my leaves come off a little stem and then have a leaf for the most part. If some of them are at an angle, they might not have that little mark, that little stem before the leaf. But my important thing here is that I'm trying to keep them all at the same value. And I'm making them, if you look at the photo, you'll notice that the photo is not exact. So each leaf is not perfectly spaced, is not perfect size. So what you want to keep in mind is that you don't want every single leaf to be exactly the same. It will not look realistic at all that it's a real plant if every leaf is the same. So I'm just going to come through and put these leaves in. Some have little holes in them, some have marks in them. So I want that somewhat irregular pattern on here as well. Some are slightly different, but the one thing that you really want to keep consistent is the value of the paint that you're putting on. Okay, so if you put, even though it's mixed to this water level, if you put too much paint on, it will get a lot thicker. So you want to keep that in mind and make sure that when you're putting your paint on your paper, you're putting it on consistently and to the same value all the way through. So basically, you're going to have a really neat painting at the end, but it's really kind of just a practice painting to work on those values and colors and brushwork. My first one is in, and I'm just going to look at my drawing that I have, my image that I have, and I'm going to come down here with the second one. And again, when you're using these liners, if you just pull straight with them, you get that nice long straight line. If you go more to the side, you get more of a rough edge line, just like you would with a brush. So if you pull straight down with them, you get that nice even line that you want, making sure that it's not too dark if you had to overlap it all, that it's all the same value. And then again, I'm just going to come in with my brush, make sure I don't have any fuzz on my paper, and put my leaves in, making sure that they are the same value as my other one. My first layer of my lightest color is all the way in. And now I have my mixture that's about 60%. And I'm gonna come in with my second layer. So I have my second layer up on my screen so I can look where it overlaps my first layer. And I'm just gonna come in again with my liner brush. And again, you don't need a liner brush just to do this little line, but it is somewhat helpful if you have one. It makes it a little bit easier to do a constant thin line. And then I'm gonna, again, just come in with my slightly darker wash. I'm making sure that my first layer is completely dry. And by going over the first layer, it covers it right up. Now, if I've gone over the first layer in an area and it hasn't covered it up and I can still really see through it a lot, I can just move my paint around a little bit and I'll be able to cover it up. So if when you're going over the first layer, you see a line, just go over it a few times, almost like you're blending your line out, and then you won't see it as much. And again, you want to make sure that your first layer is completely dry when you're putting in this second layer. And remember, you're just using the photo as a suggestion. So the point of this is just to get used to painting, work on your brush work. You will end up with a really neat image, but really you're working on mixing to the right value and working on where you're working on your paper. So it's, if you're not used to not drawing lines first, this is a great exercise to just work free form and try to add things in and get them as close as they are to your actual image as possible. So again, I'm not going to go too crazy making sure that I copy exactly what's there, but I am using it just as a reference. My second layer of value is all the way in. I've again waited for it to be dry before I do my final layer. Now this is what I'm calling my 10 value, but it's not true 10. It's probably around a 9. It's about the consistency of light cream. So it's a lot thicker than I normally work as a paint in a painting. However, to get these nice dark petals that are going to overlap everything else, I do need it to be quite a bit darker. So I have my third layer up on my screen, so I have it to reference while I'm painting. But again, I'm just using it as a reference. I'm not going too crazy about where everything is. I'm just using it as an idea, but this last layer will be pretty dark, and it will cover up those other layers. So again, if you're putting your leaf on and it's not covering up the layer that's under it, instead of adding more paint and making it darker, you just kind of want to work the paint in that area so that as you're working it, you're lifting that line below and working that out. So I'm just going to go through just like I did my other layers, and I'm going to add this last darker layer. Now the important part is that you have enough paint mixed up so that you're not trying to mix in the middle and get the same mixture and value. Because this is a mixed color that has hooker's green and shadow green in it, it will be hard to mix the same exact color again. So you want to make sure that when the first time you mix up your paint, you've definitely mixed enough paint. I have all 3 layers in now, all completely overlapped and intertwined. And just to give you an idea, you saw how much paint I had mixed up in the end. I just about ran out for my last leaf. So you saw how much paint I had mixed up on my palette. I ended up having to pull from the others and just do it darker in order to get that last leaf in for the dark. So you need a lot more than you think you're going to need. So my suggestion is make sure you mix up more than enough paint to begin with. You're better off having more than you are running out in the middle. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You can, of course, you don't need a reference photo to do this kind of thing. I enjoy making the reference photos. I enjoy getting those photos and having something to go by. But you, of course, can just do this in any configuration, in any color, to just practice getting those values right, to work on your composition, to work on your brush control and everything like that. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial of layered leaves. Let's paint.